Supreme Court has overturned the 26-year-old verdict in the JMM bribery case. What did it rule? And why Lancet Report should serve as a wake-up call for policymakers. Also, how star dunes are formed and how long it takes. Hello everyone, I am Srivastava and I am here with the 3 must-reads from the Indian Express today. So today is 5th March and as usual, the newspaper, the Indian Express, is like a textbook if you're preparing for any competitive examination, be it current affairs related news or all those news which, take you towards the static part of the syllabus. The first pick is an important pick. It has made the front page headline also, and you will find articles related to it in the explained section also. So I am actually going to talk about this pick from the explained section where it is under the category explained law, and the headline is when lawmakers take bribe. Okay, so what is it all about? So yesterday there was a very important Supreme Court a verdict rule, and the excerpt of this explainer tells you what it was about. So Supreme Court has overturned the 26-year-old verdict in the JMM bribery case. Okay, now when you read the first paragraph of this particular explainer, you get the context. Context kya hai usko janne ke liye first paragraph explains, and as I quote, that a 7-judge constitution bench of the Supreme Court headed by Chief Justice of India ruled that lawmakers facing bribery charges in the connection with their speech and votes in the House cannot be immune from the criminal prosecution. In doing so, the court held that claims to parliamentary privileges by lawmakers can be subject to judicial review, and only Parliament cannot have the last word on the issue. Okay, so इस पर्टिकुलर एक्सप्लेनर और न्यूज को समझने के लिए सबसे पहले आई वुड एडवाइज यू टू रीड द फ्रंट पेज कि what was the Supreme Court, what did the Supreme Court say, Honorable Supreme Court say on this particular issue. Then, of course, थोड़ा बहुत knowledge about the JMM bribery case वो आपको पता होना चाहिए. But beyond the headline, when you go, okay, and you see the content of what the Supreme Court has said yesterday, you would see that 2 important articles are the laws of the Constitution, the articles of the Constitution on which the court had to decide, and these 2 articles are Article 105 and Article 194 clause 2. Now, if you see the explainer in its very important style tells you what is Article 105 clause 2, and it is, and I quote, no member of parliament shall be liable to any proceedings in any court in respect to anything said or any vote given by him in the parliament or any committee thereof, and no person shall be so liable in respect to the publication by or under the authority of the House of Parliament of any report, paper, votes or proceedings. And when you read it with Article 194 clause 2, you will get to know that this provides identical protection to members of state assembly. All things said well, actually the whole issue is also around an important word which you will hear a lot is the word privilege or privileges. Okay, so the court has cited a reason to interpret privilege in a way that fits with the larger ideals of the Constitution. तो आइडियल्स ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होते हैं, और प्रिविलेजेस को जो इन मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट्स और ये स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबलीज के जो मेंबर्स होते हैं, इनको जो एमएलएस को जो मिलती हैं जो प्रिविलेजेस, they should be in line with the ideals of the Constitution. Now, why this particular article becomes very important is because it is talking about probity in public life. जो लोग यूपीएससी की तैयारी करते हैं या स्टेट सिविल सर्विसेज की तैयारी करते हैं, they know that in ethics this is a very important topic, probity in public life, and therefore this article becomes important there. Of course, from the lens of Constitution, the laws it talk about, the articles it talk about, the case it talks about, वहां पे factual knowledge आपको होनी चाहिए, but then you should also be able to connect to the larger issue. The larger issue here is probity in public life. And again, there's also a mention, the ruling cites the necessity test. Okay, and it says, I read this important paragraph for you. The ruling cited the necessity test, which means that for a member to exercise a privilege, the privilege must be such that without it they could not discharge their functions. Naturally, accepting bribes cannot be said to be necessary to discharge one's function as a lawmaker, unlike, for example, having the right to free speech. Okay, now there is a very important question which is addressed in this particular explainer, which is, can court punish elected representatives? And the answer mentioned here is that Supreme Court held that both the courts and parliament can exercise jurisdiction on the action of lawmakers in parallel. This is because the purpose of punishment by the House is different from the purpose of criminal trial. So it's both the parliament and the court can exercise jurisdiction. This is an important point. It should be kept in mind. ओके तो आपको इस पर्टिकुलर एक्सप्लेनर को ना ही केवल फैक्ट्स के बेसिस पे और फैक्ट्स के अकॉर्डिंग पढ़ना चाहिए, बट ऑल्सो द लार्जर क्वेश्चन एड्रेस, द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल आइडियल्स, the theme and the topic of probity in public life. From all that aspect, this particular explainer is important and a must read. You would also see an adjoining explainer which says, recalling 1998 majority's reading of Article 105, 194. You can read it, you can get a historical background knowledge about this particular case, but कम से कम bare minimum is this particular explainer which I just mentioned, जो आपको पढ़ना चाहिए. Okay, this is written by Apurva Vishwanath and Ajoy Sinha Karpuram. Now let's move to the second important pick for today, and the second important pick for today comes from the editorial section. Now, अगर आपको ध्यान होगा, yesterday in an explainer, as an important explainer in the explained section in the newspaper, there was a mention about a Lancet report which talks about obesity. All right, now this particular small editorial talks about it in the form of analysis, in the form of a little bit of inputs from the Express. And what you would realize that a lot of problems or a lot of surveys and reports are coming on health related issues, और बहुत सारे इन reports में there's a link between the lifestyle related diseases and obesity. So lifestyle related diseases and obesity का एक बहुत एक कनेक्शन है जो कि काफी सर्वेज और रिपोर्ट्स दिखाते हैं, और ये लैंसेट रिपोर्ट एक इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्ट मेंशन करती है, एंड इट सेज दैट मोर देन 12 million children in the country aged between 5 and 19 were grossly overweight in 2022, up from 0.4 million in 1990. A gender skew also marks the rise in obesity levels. The Lancet study found 44 million women and 26 million men aged above 20 in India to be obese, up from 2.4 million women and 1.1 million men in 1990. तो ये तो Lancet report करिए, but when you read this explainer, this small 3-paragraph explainer mentions how WHO defines obesity, and it mentions, and I quote, abnormal or excessive accumulation of fat that poses health risks. Okay. Now, interestingly, this particular editorial talks about the recent household consumption survey. It was in news. You must have seen it as a part of online articles in the Indian Express or in the newspaper. The important point, it mentions that household consumption surveys show that Indians are spending less on cereals and pulses and more on beverages, refreshments, and processed food. And then, of course, there is a parallel or the link drawn. Now, there are certain government-related policies which it mentions, like Poshan 2.0, and National Program for Prevention and Control for Cancer, Diabetes, Cardiovascular Diseases, and Strokes. Now, where are they lacking to address this particular problem? That should be read and understood. For example, Poshan 2.0, according to this particular editorial, do not give adequate attention to unhealthy eating habits. Okay, a point to think. Now, in the last paragraph of this editorial, as I told you that these are 3 paragraphs editorial, but it's quite important, and it says that India is not the only country with an intractable obesity problem. WHO notes that no country is on track to meeting its target of bringing down obesity to 2010 level by 2025. And in the last line, it says that the Lancet report should serve as a wake-up call for policy makers. Okay, so it's not only India related problem, it's a global problem, and therefore you can get questions around this particular report, या आपको subjective answer writing में या essays में आपको इसके अराउंड क्वेश्चन पूछा जा सकता है, या किसी भी डिजीज को लाइफस्टाइल प्रॉब्लम से जब लिंक किया जाए तो ये पर्टिकुलर रिपोर्ट इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाती है. Do read the explainer which was there yesterday, and then add this particular editorial in your reading list. Now the last small article, the must read, the whole newspaper is important, but this small explainer in the explain section, which says paperclip new research, and the headline is study reveals how star dunes are formed and how long it takes. Now there are certain questions in your exam जो कि this geographical features या terms के around question पूछे जा सकते हैं. Now in fact, you must read this small but important explainer ka, piece. But I would just focus on the last few lines on what are star dunes. And I quote, as the explainer mentions, star dunes are formed in areas with complex wind regimes, which means wind blowing from different directions and net sand accumulation points within the desert, which are big piles of sand which can be blown around to form giant dunes. Okay, so this is an important code, and it has, the research has been done, or the study has been done upon a star dune in eastern Morocco, which is situated within the Sahara Desert. And there's also a report which says that there have been spotted not only on Earth but also on Mars and Saturn's large moon Titan. Okay, and remember this fact that sand dunes make just under 10% of the dunes in Earth's desert and are the tallest ones. And so this particular small piece is full of a lot of information. So do go through it, do go through the whole paper, whole newspaper and online articles, but these are my special 3 must reads. You can write to me at manas.srivastava@indianexpress.com. Until then, think smart, work hard, conquer your goal. Bye-bye.